Hello, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're pushing Eden to its limits. That's right, we're going to test the games the community has been calling the most problematic. I'm talking about titles built on Unreal Engine 4, and others that used to crash, suffer from visual glitches, or just wouldn't run properly on previous Yuzu forks. The idea here is simple, to compare Eden with those games considered the most challenging for emulation, titles that used to crash, had visual glitches, or simply wouldn't boot at all. So, can Eden finally deliver stable gameplay in these cases? Stick around until the end, because today's tests are wild, and you might be seriously surprised by the results. If you want to buy original games while saving a lot, check out Instant Gaming, the digital store that sells games for various platforms, such as PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo Switch. Get games of all genres with discounts of up to 95%. You'll also find a variety of gift cards and credits for other services. You can pay for your order through your credit card on a website with a 4.7 rating on Trustpilot. You're buying games directly from Instant Gaming, not from other retailers. If you encounter any issues, Instant Gaming offers 24/7 support. And this month, Instant Gaming is offering a great discount on the newly released Monster Hunter Wilds, with up to 51% off, ensuring the lowest historical price for the game. Check out the price comparison with Steam's pricing. What are you waiting for to save? Links in the description. The version of Eden used for testing was the pre-alpha 0.0.2, and all games were running at 1080p. If you'd like, I can also test these and other games on Android. Just leave a comment with the titles you want to see featured here. Before we get into the tests, don't forget to leave a like if you enjoy this kind of content, and if this is your first time on the channel, consider subscribing to stay up to date with Eden and other emulation projects. Without further ado, let's get into the tests. The first game analyzed was Dragon Quest III HD 2D. The last time I tested this game was on Citron, where it would run fine in certain moments, but had issues with lighting effects like bloom and performance drops in some areas. Now with Eden, as you can see, all the lighting effects are rendered correctly, and there's no sign of broken visuals or performance drops, at least in the early stages. It really feels like the game is fully playable. Fast RMX, a game that really captures the spirit of F-Zero, also had problems running on every other emulator, whether user-based or Ryujinx-based. Visual bugs were common, or in the case of Ryujinx, the game was simply too slow to play. But with Eden, the game finally runs the way it should. All the performance and rendering issues are gone, delivering smooth gameplay very close to the original experience. FIFA 23 is another title frequently mentioned by the community. Over the nearly 2 months I've followed Eden's development closely, I've seen the team try hard to fix the cursor bug, the one that affects the player indicator. Unfortunately, that bug still hasn't been solved. That said, the game didn't show any other stability or rendering issues during my testing, which is a big step forward. L.A Noire, the classic from Rockstar, has always been known for poor performance in emulators. Even though there are still reports of low performance in Eden, in my tests, the game ran fine at 30 FPS, which is the original frame rate on Switch. I didn't notice any visual bugs or slowdowns. In fact, after unlocking the frame rate, I reached up to 160 FPS. It's worth noting this game has a native PC version, and my goal here was just to test the emulator's performance, not to recommend the best way to play it. Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 had also been tested in other Yuzu forks, and it always suffered from frame rate drops, even with shaders compiled and the 60 FPS mod enabled. But in my latest test using Eden, those issues were completely gone. Even during heavy boss fights full of visual effects, the game held a consistent 60 FPS, something rare in other builds. In my last video, someone asked why I tested Monster Hunter Stories 1 and 2 but skipped Monster Hunter Rise. The reason is that the Eden team had identified issues with the game's native anti-aliasing, which caused major graphical glitches. Even so, it's already a win that Eden can run this game at all, with or without the Sunbreak update. However, only the version without the update is currently playable. When running the game with the update, UI elements start flickering non-stop. I didn't record the no-update version, but the performance was clearly better. In the town area, there's a strange visual noise that shouldn't be there, but hunts ran fine with no flickering. Keep in mind this game also has a native PC version with RTX support. Another game frequently brought up due to bad performance is Ori and the Will of the Wisps. I've tested it several times on Yuzu forks, and it's always been slow, especially when starting a new save or loading a new area, since it needs to compile a ton of shaders. Sometimes the emulator would even freeze. But contrary to what many reported, the performance with Eden on my PC was very good. The game rendered properly and ran smoothly, even in demanding segments. Pokémon Scarlet has always been problematic on Yuzu forks, especially in cities where vertex explosions and other visual bugs were common. Many of these issues are tied to how poorly optimized the game is. It runs badly even on original hardware, sometimes dipping to 20 FPS. Eden brought both improvements and new issues. The visual bugs that plagued cities are mostly gone. I didn't see any major vertex explosions or serious glitches in urban areas. However, new bugs have appeared, like randomly flickering trees. So yes, it's a clear improvement, but there's still room for refinement. Sifu is another game made in Unreal Engine 4 that was recommended to me due to reports of lag, so I decided to test it out in Eden. To my surprise, the game ran at over 60 FPS on my PC when frame limit was disabled, since it uses dynamic frame rates. The results were very positive. The game does slow down when loading a new level for the first time, but that's due to shader compilation. Outside of that, gameplay was very smooth. I hadn't tested this game before, so I can't say for sure whether it even reached in-game on other emulators, which usually struggle with Unreal Engine titles. And yes, Sifu also has a native PC version. This test was purely for benchmarking purposes. Sonic Frontiers, on the other hand, was one of the games that showed the most regression in testing. Getting it to boot with Vulkan is pretty much a matter of luck. Most attempts result in the emulator crashing during the initial loading screen, which makes it difficult to even start a play session. Splatoon 3, which barely ran on other emulators and had serious performance issues on Ryujinx, now works much better. On Yuzu, the game wouldn't even get past the character creation screen due to various graphical bugs. But in Eden, it's fully playable, even in the city area, which is packed with NPCs and visual effects. Performance remains stable, and shader compilation, always one of the biggest hurdles in this game, now works efficiently and accurately. As a result, gameplay is smooth, and I didn't encounter any freezes or crashes during my test sessions. The remake of Xenoblade Chronicles X, based on reports from the community, tends to show various issues on other emulators, both in terms of performance and visual glitches. However, during my tests with Eden, I didn't encounter any of those problems. Performance was exactly what you'd expect from this title, holding a steady 30 FPS throughout the entire gameplay, which is the original frame rate on the console. In other playthroughs, I've seen reports of objects flickering on screen, especially characters, but at least in my tests, that issue never showed up. I also tested Zelda Echoes of Wisdom just to check whether the audio bug had been fixed. Unfortunately, the issue is still there. When entering the rifts, the game produces extremely loud and unpleasant noises. So it's best to lower or mute the volume of the emulator during those moments to avoid any ear-piercing sound. Lastly, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. I ran the game to show its current performance. In general, I was able to maintain around 60 FPS most of the time. There are still some pauses caused by stuttering, and RAM usage can exceed 16 GB when using aggressive mode. If you only have 16 GB, I recommend setting memory usage to conservative, otherwise, the emulator or even your operating system might crash. Overall, the game is now fully playable from start to finish, but you'll still need a powerful PC to have a smooth experience. And that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed the tests, and I'll see you in the next one.